Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri. Today we continue with Book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother, Canto 4, The Vision and the Boon. It is an extraordinary canto,
Yes.
one of the most extraordinary, and we should take some time to discuss it.
Yes. So here we have a wonderful passage where the Divine Mother reveals to Ashupati the hidden plan. Otherwise, if you really look at the cycles of creation, a question which modern mind asks very legitimately, all right, there have been so many seers, saints, sages, but at the end of the day, there is still evil. There is still suffering. And even if everything is fine inside, the human body is still prone to disease and old age and sometimes pitiable. We may justify it under whatever context, that karma or whatever. But it's so pitiable to be in that state. So why is this imperfection still haunting earth, whereas we inherit the dream of perfection from somewhere? Intuitively, all of us have inherited a dream of perfection, and that's why we are unhappy. We don't like if there is suffering, if there is cheating, if there is forgery. Something within us says it should not be. If there is only biology, then it's perfectly fine. But we don't, it contradicts. So this is where we see Ashupati bringing this, speaking what is hidden in us. So as I said, Ashupati, the avatar, Shurbindo, represents both the anguish and the aspiration. We're talking about the dual avatar the other day. The mother as the avatar represents the descending answer of the grace and the love that transforms. Both are avatars. But he is the representative in man, but he is running far ahead. He is the representative. So he is the heroic. He stands at the doors of the future, transcendent. Strong forerunner. And the Divine Mother says, what thou hast won is thine, but ask no more. No soul is thy companion in the light. But he still keeps himself tied to our humanity. We have heard about renunciation. There is great talk of renunciation. We have never heard of tying yourself consciously and deliberately to ignorance so that ignorance can be redeemed. That is precisely what our psychic being does. So those who are in a hurry to, get into nirvana must know that the original impulsion is not that. The psychic being has tied itself to nature, married itself to earth, so that one day earth can be transformed into. Otherwise, there was no compulsion. There was no original karma. That's how Shivindu brings. That if it is karma which is the bondage, what was the original karma of the soul? To get bound. So we continue further. First, those wonderful 8 lines you would like to read. My light shall be in those lines, marvelous lines. From here, we are on page 341. First, the closing part of the Divine Mother's. It's a long revelation.
My light shall be in thee, my strength thy force. Let not the impatient Titan drive thy heart. Ask not the imperfect fruit, the partial prize. Only one boon to greaten thy spirit demand. Only one joy to raise thy kind desire. Above blind fate and the antagonist powers, moveless there stands a high unchanging will. To its omnipotence leave thy work's result. All things shall change in God's transfiguring hour.
So see the transfiguring hour we are speaking of.
Yes.
And only thing is, this transfiguring hour may come sometimes after hundreds of years. If I look at people were talking about the anguish once again of the demolition of a masjid. They can't imagine, I have several times felt, the anguish of the centuries that children of this soil would have gone through when they saw their icons getting destroyed and razed to the ground. They're helpless, they can't do anything. It was brute force. What anguish they would have gone through. So, all that anguish, there is a time, all things shall change in God's transfiguring hour. And it's so amazing that today at least we have seen everybody has behaved in such a nice, calm way, as if there is something divine in the atmosphere which has held. It's not because the Prime Minister said so or somebody else said so. Who cares? Look at Prime Minister and everybody saying that, don't burn Parali, and people are defying it. But look at today, as if spontaneously everybody, there is no such that kind of excitement in the common mass that one would have expected, or a throw of hatred, nothing. As if there is a divine power which has held everybody's consciousness. No, today is a day of just being quiet, receive quietly.
And even in America, finally, Trump has said, we are with India.
Okay. Well, is it today? That would be wonderful. I mean, America and India must come together.
Yes.
They are needed for the new creation. That's what the mother said.
Yes.
Now we continue. August and sweet sang hushed that mighty voice. Look at the adjectives.
Yeah.
August, royal. But what is the beauty of that voice? Sweet.
Yeah.
This is how the voice of the great ones is described. Not august and strong or hard or loud. Sweet. That is where in the divine it is combined together. When someone asks the mother, don't you think, or something to that effect, that the divine is a dictator? See, and or you are a dictator, something like that. And everybody, is what to say. And the mother was quiet for a moment, and then she said, benevolent dictator. Benevolent dictator.
Yes.
Who only thinks the good of people. Benevolent. Who is full of compassion. Who is full of mercy. Who is full of love. And yet he has the might to make sure that dharma takes place. So we have the might also. August and sweet sang, hushed that mighty voice. It's not creating any excitement. See, divine impulsion always creates a calm. So, there are people who say, no, I am being guided by the divine. And they are doing all kinds of nonsensical things, getting into states of excitement, anger. Divine will never do that. Divine voice is always so soothing. There are passages like that in prayer and meditation where the mother says, thy voice was heard as a melodious chant. And it was addressed to the earth, where he says, poor, sorrowful earth, I am in thee. What a marvelous. This is each of your effort, each changing of seasons, each sorrow, each happiness, each struggle, each suffering leads you inevitably towards me. You can't help it, but move towards the divine. So august and sweet sang hushed that mighty voice. Nothing now moved in the vast brooding space. A stillness came upon the listening world. A mute immensity of the eternal peace. This is my experience of today inside, and I'm sure many people are experiencing this. Strangely, inexplicably. But Ashwapati's heart replied to her. Now this is the yet to be done. So we should now take the next step. Next step is not, reclaiming all the temples. Next step is now installing the Lord in the heart, sanctum sanctorum, and moving further. A cry amid the silence of the vasts. How shall I rest content with mortal days and the dull measure of terrestrial things? See, somebody who has felt the touch of the divine, how can he be happy with all the frivolities of life? You cannot, beyond a point it cannot. That's why one of the marks of those who are ready for spiritual life is that they prefer solitude naturally, because it gives them a moment to be once again in contact with that. Of course, your destiny, if it's different, then you can't help it. But preference is always for solitude. Because those are the moments when you can so readily contact. He says, you want me to be here and neighbor, I'll do it. But think about it. Dull measure of terrestrial things. All the wonderful things, this reminds me of another poem of Sri Aurobindo. There is a need within the soul of man. The splendors of the surface never sate, for life and mind and their glory and debate are the slow prelude of a vaster theme, a preface to the epic supreme. And it's so true. When the soul is awakened, you can't for long stay in the vital. It's just not possible. You can go for a moment. People start feeling uneasy, going to marketplaces and all this. How can you enjoy it for long? You may go for a very limited thing. I, who have seen behind the cosmic mass the glory and the beauty of thy face. In the Gita it is said, and Sri Aurobindo emphasizes it, when do all your bondages drop away? Bondages to all these lower propensities, finally, when do they? He says, Param Drastva, one who has seen the Supreme. So it takes time. Up till then they can be in the subconscious, they will not be expressed, but they will remain like at least like a water, like a line drawn over water. One yogi who had his own big following and was, used to come here. He had turned to Sri Aurobindo later on. So he left his body at 107 or 108. So somebody, when he was 100 or something, asked him about some aspect of the lower nature. He said, is it still there? He says, well, it's like, you draw with a stick line on the ocean. That much. I mean, it just vanishes. But for a moment, he's aware, conscious. Look at the awareness of him. He's conscious that, So when you have seen, then of course, no question of it. And then he pleads on our behalf, hard is the doom to which thou bindest thy sons. Another place in Savitri where he says, those who are chosen by you, they are marked by the stamp of their fire. The implacable, titanic. Yes. So all these children of the divine whom they have chosen, at one place Mother says, when it is said that God has very few friends, you understand, when divine gives you his friendship like Arjuna, this is a very rare event. Why? Because you have to be ready. Your life will become topsy-turvy and you will be treated, hammered till you have shaped into that perfect vessel. Mother spoke when somebody said, I want to be like Champaklal. She said, oh, ask him. Because then you have to be prepared with great, you have to be ready for all the blows. The great mystic Bulle Shah says, you have cut me to pieces and each drop of my blood sings your glory. That kind of surrender. So difficult for human consciousness. So hard is the doom to which thou bindest thy sons. We were talking about a few mystics. Now, but they are truly the chosen ones who are ready to go through the crucible of fire. Incidentally, Mother's last prayer when she leaves Japan, she mentions it in the agenda. Since the man refused the meal that I had prepared for him, I have offered it to you, O God. And she speaks of the whole experience with this prayer. She says it was an experience in a Japanese house and everything she describes. In that experience she says that, for you I am ready to descend into the darkest hell. And then she speaks about the Calvary of resistance. She had to bear all this from Christian mysticism.
Yes.
So she is bearing all this and she is ready to take it, descend into the worst pit of falsehood. That is divine love. And those who are chosen have to go through. So on behalf of these beings, he is not talking of ordinary sorrows which come to every human being. Not like Buddha, life is full of suffering. This is about thy sons, even those who are born to do your work. Look at the Pandavas, all their life suffering. Look at Rama himself. Look at Krishna's life. I mean, it's amazing the kind of things they have to go through. And of course, Sri Aurobindo and the mother.
And the last line of that incredible passage: none can enter heaven who has not passed through hell.
Hard is the doom to which thou bindest thy sons. How long shall our spirits battle with the night? It's not, we get so tired in one life. This is our problem. Rahu Kalam. Rahu Kalam is 2.5 years. Shani Kalam is 7 years. That's it. The worst case scenarios. And that is also a purification process. No big deal. But look at the life of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Through lives they have struggled for this. Often I wonder, as Danton, what he would have felt when he was guillotined. Sri Aurobindo is reported to have remarked this Amrita, that often he would sometimes put his hand here, and when he asked him, he said, that guillotine experience of his previous life he carried here. The mother, the experience of being burnt at the stake as John the Ark, she carried in this life. So, fire used to, create that, because she still carried. The lives they have gone through, it is not like, and so willingly and happily they have done it. Not that, Danton could have been like Robespierre, made a pact with others and said, okay, my idea is right, time has not come, any excuse. But he went to the gallows. Look at the, beauty of that sacrifice. How long shall our spirits battle with the night and bear defeat and the brute yoke of death? We who are vessels of a deathless force and builders of the Godhead of the race. Now this is the beauty. If we would say the thing, we say, how long? Are we really the builders of the race? But he says, no, we are. That is taken for sure. There is no doubt about it. That we are here to build perfection out of transient things. Or rather to build immortally with transient things. This is how Sri Aurobindo's poem In the Moonlight ends. To build immortally with transient things. And one of the things that comes to my mind is the great epics. Iliad, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and of course now Savitri. What material is used? Paper, pen, ink, typewriter. Even the body and brain, transient things. But what is the result? Something immortal. To build immortally with transient things.
And now it's more than 50 years since Mother said all those born after 4, 5, 6, 7 will be special.
Yes.
More than 50 years have passed.
And of course, after the supramental manifestation,
Yes.
people born in 60s also should be included.
Yes.
So I think we'll stop with these 4 lines and then we'll continue next tomorrow. How long shall our spirits battle with the night and bear defeat and the brute yoke of death? We who are vessels of a deathless force and builders of the Godhead of the race. So, our Lord and Master has never given up, doesn't believe in giving up. There's a letter where he says, even if I knew that the entire world would collapse, I would look beyond the smash to the new creation. So, as his children, we should never give up, even for a moment.